You're listening to the Southampton Dellivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Tella. Onside, 1-0. Blue foul shot. Oh my word!
Unbelievable. We ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Dellivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it, and hopefully you enjoy it more than that performance against Brighton. Not the way I wanted to start my Sunday morning, but hopefully it didn't ruin your Sunday afternoon or your Sunday evening, depending on where, of course, in the world you are watching. But joining me basically directly after the final whistle was Jack from Saints News and Views on Twitter. You can follow him at SaintsFCViews. And Jack has been on the show several times before. It's always a pleasure to speak with him. Unfortunately, we had to talk about this and not something that was, a bit more positive. But as I said, we spoke to Jack directly after the final whistle. We answered some of your questions. We tried to pick out some of the things we were happy to see. And we also talked about some of the problems, both with the City game and with the match against Brighton. So hopefully you get a chance to listen to this prior to us heading into the FA Cup quarterfinals against Bournemouth. And I hope that you enjoyed the episode. Thanks again for being here. We'll talk to you on the other side. We'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Dellivery Podcast, Jack from Saints News and Views. You can follow him on Twitter at SaintsFCViews. The quote from Ralph said, "This was one of the worst performances of the season." Sorry you had to come on and talk about this one, but how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks for having me back on, Matt. It's been a while, but it's great to be back on. We were having a little discussion off the podcast, weren't we? Just about we're hoping we had a good performance to talk about, but it was dreadful, wasn't it? It really wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Yeah, I was hoping. I mean, I think you've been on maybe for 2 Boxing Day fixtures or somewhere around there in the last couple of years, where I think we've recorded on Boxing Day or maybe even Christmas. I don't really remember. I just know it was around that time, and we were looking at the fixtures going like, maybe you got a good one, and as soon as we think that, we come out and have a performance like that. I was explaining to you, I felt a little sluggish. I was fortunate enough to get the vaccine, the first dose of the vaccine, earlier this week. I felt super sluggish, had some body aches, the day after. Saints looked like we just injected everybody with that instead of some sort of adrenaline, which is definitely what we needed, with a midday kickoff. So a little disappointing, but still excited to talk to you, talk about the page, and hopefully answer some questions and get into this. But going from a team that was at the top of the table and in the top 4 to kind of just somebody that's just been sinking for a while. And there are a number of factors. And I think everyone from the front office to the manager to the players, everybody has a role to play in kind of the downfall that we've had. But when it comes down to just performances on the pitch, you would expect better than what we saw against Brighton, I think, especially when you consider what we did against City midweek, where, Pep was very complimentary. Of course you would be when you get the result you expect. And, I don't think anybody expected, maybe outside of a couple of Southampton fans secretly holding hope, nobody really expected us to go to the Etihad and win. We pressed them well early on and we played well. And unfortunately, City are just really, really good at football, and they wound up, outdoing us. But it seems to be when we play midweek, or we have to play 2 games in a week, we don't tend to play well on the Saturday. So I guess, were you kind of expecting a kind of a dull performance, given it's a midday kickoff and all that stuff, and we kicked off midweek against City as well?
I don't think I was expecting it to be as bad as it was. I think we made 6 changes versus City, And yeah, like you said, no one expected us to beat City, but it's always a gamble when you do that. When you make a lot of changes, you then have to win the game that you've rested players for. So to come away today with a loss, that's really damaging. And that has to sit on Ralph's shoulders. You make a gamble like that and it hasn't paid off. It's always a hard one for me because at the moment we've got a really fragile squad. So I can understand why he made the changes that he did, given the injury list we've got.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I think it's best I think momentum plays a huge role in football. So I don't know, if we'd come away with even a draw by playing our best team against Man City, that would have teed us up with a lot more momentum coming into today.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you rest players, it doesn't give them the chance to build confidence. So was I surprised we lost against City? Absolutely not. But sometimes I disagree with a couple of Ralph's decisions, and I think maybe playing a slightly stronger squad versus City would have actually helped us today. But yeah, today was super disappointing, and yeah, I'm sure we'll digest that.
Yeah. Just going back to that City lineup, you look at the team sheet and you kind of try to figure out where people are playing. We selected 4 center backs. We could have gone, full Tony Pulis, just center backs all the way across the back line. But Stevens was in midfield. Bertrand was at right back. Salisu at left back. And kind of like my takeaway was the mistakes that we made that led to the City goals in that one weren't really a surprise. You had the guys that are kind of on the fringes, Salisu trying to get into the team more often, and he's young and he's playing out of position, but he gives the ball away for a goal. Adams, who has scored now in 3 games in a row, which is great. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but he gives the ball away for a goal. And just, McCarthy didn't really impress me. Like, these guys who are on the fringes didn't really do anything to say to Ralph, hey, I need to be in the team. And I think that just kind of shows you the level that the squad is at. And then when you come into today, you have essentially I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and looked at that and went like, I guess this is the best we're going to do. And that lineup looked okay. And then we were just flat. So as you said, there's no momentum coming in there. It seems like there's no fire in the team. And that's not really acceptable. I think the team has to do better than that if we're going to do anything other than just survive in the Premier League this season.
I was looking at some of the stats before we came in. I think it's 10 points taken from a possible 48. And ultimately, that's just not good enough. It is not good enough whatsoever. 16 games, 10 losses, 2 wins, 4 draws. That's relegation form. And we're incredibly lucky that there are probably 3 worse teams in Southampton. And we're very lucky that we started the league strongly this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one point that you just pointed out from the City game, Ralph's done this quite a few times, and it might be because he's had his hands behind his back, but he's played a lot of players out of position. So Kane Ramsey just signed a brand new contract with Saints, and then he opts to start Bednarek at right back. It's interesting why you would give a youngster that vote of confidence to give him his contract, but then not have enough confidence in to start him at right back. Jack Stevens, in my opinion, not good enough to be a Southampton player. Then you start him in the middle of midfield against Rodri, Gundogan, some of the best players in the world. I really like Ralph. I think he's the best we can definitely have at the moment. But some of his decision making has been really questionable this year.
Yeah, you see sometimes where a manager makes a decision, and if it works, it's brilliant. But I think a lot of Saints fans have said, Jack Stevens could play in midfield because he's good on the ball, but you just saw kind of every reason that he shouldn't do it that day. He was a half step slow, picking the ball up on the half turn and trying to find a pass with tackles are coming not just kind of from in front of you or from one direction, but they're coming from everywhere. He was just too slow on the ball, and that's not necessarily his fault. Like, he wasn't really put in a position to succeed by being thrown into midfield against some of the best players in the world. And then you just have to wonder, is Ralph just sacrificing him because he wanted to make sure Diallo stays fit and that Kyle Walker-Peters stays fit? I thought Bertrand on the right was maybe the most. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I don't really know what to say. When Bertrand is 32 or whatever he is, and he's playing more minutes than Diallo, Kyle Walker-Peters, all these other guys. It's like something's happening there. We gotta figure out what Ryan Bertrand is doing to stay fit, and then we all need to do it. So whatever that is, get on it, everybody. But yeah, I mean, the City game, as we said, just if we could have taken anything from the first 20, 25 minutes where we pressed really well and played really well, that would have been great. But we didn't, because you got to play 90 minutes. But we come into Brighton, and I don't know. I mean, looking at the lineup for Brighton, were you at all surprised by what was there, or is that kind of what you expected?
No.
And if
no. On paper, strongest team. It's completely one of our strongest teams, minus obviously Danny Ings, perhaps Theo Walcott, but it's the strongest we had. And yeah, I was optimistic. On paper, we have a better team than Brighton. I was confident going into this game that this is the strongest squad available that we've got. And I was optimistic. I thought, yeah, we could definitely take something from this. But like you just said, we just never really got going. I was making a few notes kind of through the game. And I think the standout for me was Brighton started the better team. They wanted it more. They were stronger in midfield. They were out-muscling Diallo. They were out-muscling Ward-Prowse. And then there's a couple of good saves by Fraser, and they made the breakthrough. But I was impressed by Southampton's reacted well. But just for too long, for too many times in the game, we just looked pedestrian, and we looked like we didn't wanted it as much.
Yeah.
And I was really disappointed by that. Really, really disappointed by that.
Yeah, because that's kind of the least you expect, is the team to show up and have some heart. And we joke, and I think are serious a lot of times as well too, about Saints being the only team on the South Coast, and we had a chance to send Brighton further towards the relegation zone. Bournemouth's promotion hopes not going well. The other team down the road not exactly having a great time, losing yesterday or Saturday. As we speak, it was yesterday, but and we had a chance just to assert our dominance, and we didn't do it, and that's disappointing. I think I have it written down. Brighton hadn't scored more than one goal in a league game since I think January 2nd, and we allowed them to score twice, which is just it shows you kind of where we're at as a team. And I think we have some questions about Fraser Forster's ability to get down to the ground on that header. I have other questions about what we were doing defensively, but we'll get to that. But as you said, I was pretty happy with the starting lineup. I think Tella deserved a start based on his performance recently. He looked lively. But what did you make of Nathan Tella? I have him down kind of as he didn't really offer much. He pressed the keeper a couple of times. But he didn't really seem to get into the game offensively. He seemed like there were a couple of times he held onto the ball too long, didn't play passes and things like this. I was really expecting more from him. It's probably a lot of pressure to put on a young kid, but I didn't think he quite had it today. And I guess before I turn it over to you on this, I think back to Josh Sims, when Josh Sims was coming on as a sub and looked good. And we all kind of were going like, will he get a start? Will he get a start? And then he gets a start and he kind of just disappears and drifts out of the game. And I'm just hoping we're not going to see that again from Nathan Tella. But what did you make of his performance today?
No, you're right. I completely agree. He was excellent against Sheffield United. He really lively, pressing. He looked dangerous. He looked bold. He looked ambitious. He was driving forward. Everything you want a young forward to play like. And then today, do I think it was his fault? No, I don't. Look, he's 21 years old. This is maybe one of his. I don't think he's made too many starts.
Right.
And it's hard to expect too much from a 21-year-old who hasn't got that much experience. It outlines the lack of depth that we've got in this team. And you're right, he didn't have a great game today, but was it entirely his fault? No. Armstrong, Ward-Prowse, there wasn't much service from either of them, or any of the wide players. So he kind of, again, he was struggling for service, and he had his hands tied behind his back. You can only be as good as the players behind you sometimes. And if you're feeding off scraps, you're expecting a 21-year-old to produce magic. And I think it's quite a big ask for a young lad. So I would say it was a little bit disappointing. He like you said, a couple of bad touches, but he just didn't influence the game. But I think it's hard to pinpoint the blame on him. I think you have to look at the older players, the Ward-Prowses, the Armstrongs. There was nothing from them to help him.
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. And when we did actually get control of the ball, Brighton tended, as soon as they scored, they started dropping slightly deeper than they were. They pressed really high at the beginning, but they had all control of the ball. And I think Tella does well when he has some space to run into. That's when he's most dangerous. And he just really didn't get that chance today, I think. And that might have something to do with it. I was quite surprised. Generally Vestergaard is the biggest person on the pitch, but today it looked like that Brighton back line is just massive. And then
It's huge.
The fullback discrepancy. Kyle Walker-Peters against who was it? It's not Dunk. It's whatever that Giants name is over there. He went off at halftime. But I was looking at that going, well, we're not going to win any balls in the air, but we should beat him in a foot race. And then we didn't. He I think set up what should have been a goal. I think they ran right straight through us, and it's just like I didn't expect that from him. And I'll be honest, I don't watch Brighton very much. It's not they're not necessarily one of the teams I'm going to turn on as a neutral, even though they do play nice football. They don't score enough goals, and if I'm watching at the neutral, I want to see goals. So I don't know much about them other than they seem to disappoint me a lot whenever we play them.
Yeah, it was a bit of an off game from Walker-Peters today. He has been excellent since he's come in for Saints. He's been a real great signing, really, really good signing. But he had a quiet game. I saw him being caught out of position a few times today, and the whole back line for me today wasn't great. Look, we've shipped, I think, 50 goals. I think only West Brom have conceded more than us, which isn't great. To be a good team, you have to build from the back. You have to have a solid foundation. And today, I just want to outline a really bad performance from Jan Bednarik. He's been great since he signed for us, and he's really been impressive. But today, I don't know if it was just an off day, but I caught at least 4 or 5 positions where he was just completely caught out against the run of play. I don't know if it was Welbeck's pace or Trossard's movement, but he overcommitted on too many times, and he got caught out. And then Welbeck's pace in behind, it just wasn't good enough. And today he was a liability. And Vestergaard played a couple of nice kind of diagonal balls, his trademark thing. But again, his communication. One thing that I really picked up on today was Bednarik and Vestergaard both frailing their arms or throwing them up in the air when one or another had made a mistake or had something hadn't gone their way. It looked like a lot of the team's body language just seemed down and out before the 90 minutes had even happened. Look, I'm all for that. After the game, sort it out, do what you need to do. But during the game, there was just a lot of kind of bad body language, and that's not what you want to see as a Saints fan. You want them to be giving everything on the pitch as they can, and then let's sort it out afterwards. And kind of speaking of body language, there was one thing that I picked up on. I think it might have been the 75th minute or kind of around the 80th minute. I saw Redmond. He came on. He didn't do too much. And then there was a cutaway shot of him talking to Lallana, and they were just joking and laughing. And I don't want to see that as a Saints fan. I do not want to see that as a Saints fan. I mean, yeah, you might know Lallana. He might be pals with him. But I don't want to see that. We're 2-1 down. Mm-hmm. You have been awful since you've come on. I want to see some fight for you. I don't want to see you having a little conversation with Adam Lallana. Do that off the field. Right. I don't want to see that. You need to be working hard, getting into positions. And for me today, when Redmond and Gineppo came on, didn't do anything. Absolutely nothing. And it just frustrates me when you see Redmond. It's very innocently, probably just having a conversation with a friend. It's no different if I saw a friend. But give something. You can have a talk off the field. But that really kind of got on my nerves slightly a little bit today.
I think that's fair. And I think one thing that I've been critical of Redmond about in recent weeks is he does the same thing you're talking about with Bednarik and Vestergaard. Bednarik, I think, has been getting worse the last couple of weeks. He seems to be complaining a lot more. And Redmond, if things don't go his way, he throws his arms up in the air first and then gets back to playing. And what I want to see is, something happens, you get back into it, you win the ball or whatever, the ball goes out of play, and then you can, talk to the referee or whatever it is, or yell at. I think Che Adams midweek against City, they had to apologize on our coverage here for the salty language, and I was like, I don't mind that. I think that's great. Yell at everybody, but yell about the game and be, see the ball all the way out of play or whatever it is, and then you can moan at the referee or moan at the other player or whatever it is. But I think that individual responsibility just doesn't quite seem to be there. Nobody on the pitch seems to want to be the guy to make a decision or to kind of put their head forward as being the guy in charge. And it's not anything against James Ward-Prowse. We just need people to be able to take that ball. And I think Danny Ings does that for us a lot. But we just maybe don't have that when he's not in the lineup.
It's interesting as well. You're saying that for me, Brian Bertrand's exactly the same. You see him, he loves a moan on the pitch. He loves a moan. And I don't know why, but it frustrates me. It's like, just, okay, dig in, do your job, rather than throwing your arms around or shaking your head passive aggressively because someone in front of you hasn't made a run. Get on with the game. Like it seems at the moment the body language and the attitude of the players. It's no wonder we're losing. You can see they're down and out. You can see that they're struggling mentally. You see that they're not playing confidently, and it seems that I don't know, maybe that spark or that connection they had when they were winning naturally has dispersed because they're on a really barren run at the moment. But something has to change to get that run ended. And it doesn't look like things are clicking in terms of the football component or as a team, as a kind of a bunch of guys who need to work together to win. And it just seems that things are a little bit fragmented at the moment with the team. I mean, it could be absolutely nothing, but from just watching and as a neutral, it just looked like things haven't clicked. And the most disappointing thing in all of it is that there's no signs that we're turning this around. There's no bright spark. There's no, do you know what? We were really unlucky there. A decision didn't go our way, or something, but there's just nothing. There's nothing to be optimistic about at the moment, probably apart from Che Adams, but there's no sign that we're turning this around anytime soon. And for me, that is the biggest issue.
Yeah. Let's talk about Che Adams a little bit, because Ralph referred to him as maybe a little bit like a ketchup bottle. You get nothing, and then all of a sudden you get a lot. And we have, I don't know, if you have the glass bottle, having worked in the restaurant, if you turn it over, there's ours is Heinz 57. So you have the Heinz or the 57 logo. You have to hit that kind of right on the neck, and that will give you the ketchup in a more even dispersal. I don't know if that's probably not a secret, but I tell customers that all the time as they just pound the bottom of the bottle and then shoot it all over their shirt. And it's like, guys, that's not what you want to do. But anyway, Che, 3 goals in 3 games. When Danny Ings went down, we all kind of asked where the goals were going to come from. We're not scoring a lot. But I think that Che has definitely, if anybody has played well recently, you probably have to give him some credit, right?
Yeah, sure. For me, I could probably count on a couple of fingers who has been deserving of to wear that shirt at the moment, and one of them is definitely Che Adams. Like you said, 3 goals in 3 games. It's really good, and today, for me, he took charge. He led the line. He held the ball out well, looked for others. But you know what epitomised Che's performance today is he scored that brilliant goal, and then just after Brighton scored a second, we had an excellent chance to equalise it. Really, really excellent chance to equalise it, and he fluffed it. And for me, that is the epitome of Che Adams at the moment. He shows glimmers like 3 and 3, great, and then he misses a sitter. And that's the frustrating thing about Che, is that a bit more consistency, and he would be an excellent player. But that goal, I think it resulted in a James Ward-Prowse free kick from just outside the box. But that was a great chance for Che to make it 2-2, and he didn't take it. Great save, but he should be scoring that. And that's the frustrating thing with Che. You just kind of want to shake him and you go, ah! Yeah. But 3 and 3 is an impressive stat for him, especially kind of in Danny Ings' absence. But 11 goals and 58 appearances for Che since we've signed him. And you kind of think, is that good enough for a striker in the Premier League? He's 24 years old. Is it good enough, Matt? What do you think?
No. That on numbers alone, no. I would say if you look at the other things he does for the team, maybe it's a little bit more if you're going to be the pass first striker, if your job is to hold the ball up and run the channels and do those things, because as you said, he does all those things very well. But if he's going to be the guy that's going to lead the line and score the goals, then no, he's not anywhere near efficient enough in front of goal to be that guy. And if Danny Ings is to go, well, I don't want to go there yet, but we'll talk about if Danny Ings decides to go or is out longer than what needs to happen up front. But I was overall impressed with Che Adams for the most part, other than he did miss that really clear-cut opportunity. And the referee in that instance, and we should give some credit to, I think it was Janepo who was running into the area. Maybe it was Kyle Walker-Peters. I can't remember who it was, but running into the area, gets fouled, the ball falls to Che. Referee has a good view of it, plays the advantage, allows us to take the shot, and then a lot of times that's it. That's over. The advantage is played, so you don't get the free kick. We got the free kick after anyway, and nothing came from it. But you do expect Che Adams to bury that, and that's also what I want to see from more of our attackers is just that direct kind of running into the box and make the defenders do something, make them commit to a tackle or make them back off, which may give you a chance to either provide an assist to somebody else or get a shot off yourself. And we don't do that enough. It's too much kind of one step over, one touch, and then a backwards pass, and that just allows defenses to reset their line to move forward, and then we wind up slinging balls into one of the tallest back lines in all the Premier League.
Yeah, do you know what? Today I was especially that second half, I was really tempted to kind of write down how many backwards or sideways passes we made, but I think I would have run out of paper. It's one of the most frustrating things is that, especially when we are behind in the game and we're chasing our tails, we're trying to find the equaliser. One of the biggest irks for me is that it's so methodical, it's so sideways, it's so backwards. There's no gumption, there's no kind of aggression. I don't think I saw any aggression until the 90th minute, until 3 minutes at a time got put on the list. And for me, you want to see that earlier. You want to see more urgency, but it's just that we're devoid of ideas. We kind of get 3/4 of the way up to the pitch, and it's like, oh my God, we're so high up. Back it up, pass it back to Vestergaard, pass it back to Bednarek. Or it'll go into Ward-Prowse and it'll pass it back to Bednarek, or pass it back to Forster. It's like you said, I've not seen a Redmond, a Gineppo, a Minamino take control of the situation by saying, do you know what? Even if I lose the ball, I'm going to make a really direct run into the box. I'm going to try and make something happen. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the last time I've seen that. And it's just, there's no urgency. And that's the problem, is that we are just sometimes too methodical. We're too sideways. And if we're chasing our tails, that's not going to get you an equaliser. Right. Or even like high balls into the box, or there's no idea there on how we can score. And that's fine. And I think when you've got Danny Ings playing the way he did last year, a lot of that gets masked up. Mm-hmm. Individual brilliance, we didn't need to have to kind of be in this position now. And kind of slightly moving it back to Che, I think for me, when Danny Ings was last year playing brilliantly, him and Che were excellent. Mm-hmm. It really played into Che's strengths. Che's hold up, his distribution into Danny, he was brilliant. He was a perfect strike partner. And it didn't matter that he wasn't scoring as much, because Danny was, and he was perfect for Danny. But like you said, when Danny Ings is injured or he hasn't scored as many, it then puts more emphasis on the other strikers and the other players to contribute better. And the problem is they haven't been. So it is great to see Che score 3 and 3. I'm really excited about that, and hopefully he can kind of make it 4 and 4 next week. But yeah, we just need to see more players contributing to goals, and that reliance on Danny Ings last year is not the luxury what we have this year. But kind of a quick one for Ward-Prowse. I mean, like, he's got 8 goals this year, so he is contributing a lot more than what he was previously. But we just need more players to do that. It's the Gineppos, the Armstrongs. You just want to see a bit more from them, really. Yeah,
absolutely. We need more. I think we've come to expect more. I think it's fair to expect more from the players. And I don't like to complain about getting up early. But if I'm going to get up on the day that we spring forward here in the United States, the equivalent of 3:30 and then a 4 a.m. kickoff, I need a little bit more excitement. I need a little bit more energy from the team. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to keep pounding coffee, and then I will just be jittery by the end of this, which is not so good.
Do you know what? The sad thing in all of this, like you said there, you want to see some fight, you want to see some effort. But sadly, it's getting to a point now where, A, we're not seeing it, or B, because of this really bad run, we need more than that.
Yeah.
We need to go in with, we can't now just have a good performance. That's not good enough.
Right.
You have to win to break this run. We have to start winning. And at the moment, having a good performance or trying hard or chasing down and kind of really pressing, it's not enough. We need to see more than that. And that's not happening at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think, a lot of the talk around Brighton especially is, they play good football. They just don't finish the job. And, getting down to this end of the season, I think a lot of teams now go, okay, like nice football can stop. We just need points. And so at this point, I don't really care how we get them. We need some points. And we have a couple of questions slightly earlier than normal to go to questions, but I think this fits. Justin Woodward, one of the patrons of the show, asks 7 points needed. That would give us 40. Where are they coming from? And I was just kind of looking at the remaining fixtures. We have Spurs, Burnley, West Brom, Crystal Palace, Leicester City, Liverpool, Fulham, Leeds, and West Ham. And just thinking about this, Burnley, maybe that's a point. I could see us getting a point there. It's at home, so who knows? We have a pretty terrible home record. We have West Brom. I think that's 3. And then maybe something from Fulham or Leeds, but it's difficult to really see us getting something. Maybe Liverpool. We can beat them again. That'd be nice, but I have a feeling they'll be ready for us. I don't like playing West Ham the last day of the season. We don't tend to do very well the last day of the season, and West Ham tends to be one of those teams that give us a hard time. Fulham frustrated us. Leeds beat us. Leicester City, that could be, that's always dangerous. So I don't know. For you, are you? People are asking on Twitter as we're talking. Are we in a relegation battle, and how real is that? And then I guess are you just starting to count points now? Is that what we're doing?
I think it is. I think we ultimately, as Southampton, we have to beat the teams below us. And we've done a reasonably good job at that this year. I think we've got 19 points from a possible 24 for the teams below us. And that's great. So today we needed to beat Brighton. It would have, if we'd beaten Brighton today, 36 points, I would have been happy. I said, yeah, look, we're not in a relegation battle. Right. That's fine. This loss, it just makes you think something could happen. And that's not the feeling that you want. Do I think we're going to get relegated? No. I don't think we are. I think we're very lucky that there are at least 2 teams who are pretty much down out now. So you've got West Brom and you've got Sunderland. So West Brom on 18 points and Sheffield on 14. The problem is Fulham are in a good run of form. They're in a really good run of form. Yes, they lost kind of against City, but that was expected. So I don't think we're going to go down. I think we've got enough to not go down. But today's result makes me more nervous than what I'd like to be.
Yeah.
Burnley is huge. It's an absolutely huge game coming up.
Yeah.
And we need to get 3 points from it. To stay up, you need to beat the team. If you're in a kind of relegation battle, if you're down towards kind of 14th below, you need to beat the teams below you. We're not expecting to beat Liverpool. We're not expected to beat Leicester. Yes, we've shown we can pick up points against big teams. We've actually done really well like that kind of the last few years under Ralph. For me, we need to beat the teams below us. We need to beat the Burnleys. We need to beat the kind of the West Bromwich Albions. If we take 6 points against those 2 games, we're fine. We're absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, today's result has made me slightly more nervous than what I'd like it to be. But I don't think we're going down. But if we do, don't play this clip, Matt. Okay, just delete this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. We'll take it out of the archive.
It never happened.
I think one thing for me is the expectations were so much more, coming into the season, and now with, coming into the kind of the business end, we've shifted from, can we be in the top half of the table? Can we challenge maybe for a European position, which is probably always just us being optimistic as fans and being hopeful, which is fine. We're allowed to do that. But the expectations have fallen so far for the team, and we said earlier, there's a lot of factors that play into that. But it is kind of humbling to have hoped that we were going to be at one point, in the top half of the table, and now we're kind of just looking over our shoulder again, which is not something we wanted to do. And hopefully over the summer, we'll be able to strengthen the team, and and we don't have to do this next time. But I can't promise that, and I can't. I don't really have Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say you touched on it just then. We can get to the summer, we can re-strengthen. But when was the last time you looked at our transfer window and said we had a good window?
Yeah.
I can't think of one. I generally can't think of one. I think the last summer was probably one of our strongest that we've had in a long time. But we had a discussion about this earlier. It was, in my opinion, we're struggling because the limitations put on the club. Ralph has had his hands tied behind his back since he's come to Southampton. And he would have known that before he joined. He would have known that we're not the biggest spenders in the world. But you could argue that he's really not had the opportunity to build the squad that he wants, bring in the players that he wants. And you can tell that it's definitely starting to annoy him, because there are more quotes from the press conferences week in, week out of him saying we need more players. We can't keep doing it. And he's right. There's only so long that we can flirt with relegation every single year without it happening finally.
Right.
And until we get money in this club, we will continue to be this yo-yo team. We will continue to flirt with relegation. So I love the quote coming out from Ralph saying we need loads more players and we're going to have a great window. But how are we going to do that? We've posted, I think, 2 years of quite substantial losses. So how's this summer going to be any different? Yeah. I would love us to bring in a lot more players, and we need more players. But is it going to happen? Realistically, can we afford players?
Yeah.
And if we can't afford players, do we have to sell before we buy? And then that then puts us back in the cycle. You lose your best players, you then gamble on having to bring some kind of unproven players in. It's a real catch-22, and I think the only way that we can get out of this is through investment. So, look, the makers of Red Bull, if you're listening to this podcast, I know you're big fans. Put some money into us, okay? buy Southampton. But kind of realistically, we do need more money and better investment to push on from him. Otherwise, this cycle is just going to repeat and repeat and repeat. And I feel for Ralph, because he is one of the best. I think for me, he's shown wherever he's gone, he's been a success. And we've seen glimpses of that at Southampton. To be top of the table with Southampton earlier this year was incredible. And we've been very unlucky with the injuries this year. But until we have that investment, this is going to continue to happen every single season.
Yeah, I mean, the squad is too thin to play the type of football that we want to see, which is exciting, and it's what Ralph wants to bring to the team. And when we do it, we do it well, it's a lot of fun. But as soon as we get an injury or things start to break down, we do not have the depth to be able to do that. And questions here from FUT_ASD. It says, where's the most important position to upgrade in the transfer window? It feels like Saints are rolling out a championship level squad each week and have just been surviving because of coaching and tactics. And we kind of talked about that. But if you were going to look at the squad and you were going to pick one spot to upgrade, I guess where would it be?
It has to be at fullback, isn't it? For me, personally, it has to be at fullback. I don't know if this is slightly controversial, Matt. Feel free to kind of back on me. I haven't been that impressed with Ryan Bertrand this year. I think he's been relatively solid-ish, but you can tell that he's not getting any younger. He loses that yard of pace. Today, he was responsible for the first goal today. No ends up. That guy's a brute. Dunk is huge.
Yeah.
So maybe why was he marking him, and Vestergaard wasn't marking him? But he was at fault. And today, when he was going forward, his feet were getting caught up. And so I think that we need to find a left back that's going to be pushing Bertrand to start. I don't think it's good enough to bring in someone that's just depth, that just offers depth. We need to bring in someone who is good enough to start at left back for Southampton.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time that I've seen Bertrand bombing down the left-hand side, overlapping. He seems to have just lost lost a little bit of pace. His defending isn't as tight as it used to be. Don't get me wrong, he has been relatively solid, but for me, we need a new left back. And if that new left back can play right back sometimes as well, great. But for me, a new left back. What about you?
I think that's fair, and I think we need somebody that can play backup to Kyle Walker-Peters in case that happens, because I don't think any of the replacements we've had this year have been good enough. But if I only get one transfer or one spot to pick, I'm not going to add depth. I'm probably going to add somebody to change the game. And I'm not sure. I'm not convinced on Minamino yet. He's been okay, but it's not quite the injection that I was hoping for. But I think a new left back would be fine. And I like Ryan Bertrand a lot. And as you said, he's been solid, and he's played a ton of minutes this season, but he is not getting younger. He is going to age, and it's starting to show. And that's nothing against him. That's just kind of what happens. And he's playing at a very high level. But we've seen how good Kyle Walker-Peters is and what it means to the team to be able to, have an out ball there to allow the defensive solidity on that side that allows Armstrong to kind of be a bit more free in his movement. And we don't have that on the left. And so if we got the equivalent player on the left, I think that makes us a lot better. So I would say that's a fine place. I don't know. I don't know where else we would go, because the team, like we said, on the whole of it, doesn't look terrible on paper. It just doesn't have it when it's on the pitch, and I think that's something we're just going to have to kind of figure out. So
you touched on it briefly there with Minamino. I think he's a luxury player. Minamino for me is a luxury player that a team like Liverpool can afford to have. I don't think that Southampton can afford to have a luxury player who can maybe pop up with a few goals here and there. For me, I don't think I would make Minamino. I don't think we're going to get Minamino on a permanent deal. I don't think that's going to be possible. I don't think I'd want to bring him in. I think there are other players out there who would be better suited to Ralph's system than Minamino.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair, and we'll have to see. He's obviously here for game time, and he's helping us in a situation where Walcott's out and several other players are injured. So we'll kind of leave that there. We have another question from Neil saying, it says, when is Ralph going to stand up to the board and stop agreeing with players leaving on loan with no replacements? And that was something that frustrated me at the end of the window when we sent out kind of all of our fullback cover and didn't bring anybody in. Even though they were trying, they didn't get it in. And it's meant that Ryan Bertrand has to play midweek at right back against Manchester City and then play on the left in his natural position at the weekend. And he is, as we said, older, solid, but not kind of as dynamic as I think we need. So, do you think it's a case where Ralph doesn't trust Valerie, doesn't trust Vokins, doesn't think they're good enough, is hoping that they go out and have a good showing, can be sold this summer? Or do you think they need to get experience so that they can come back and play for us? And I don't know, if it's probably a difficult question to answer there, but
I think touching on the original question, I don't think it's a case of Ralph standing up to the board. I think Ralph has sanctioned this, and for good reason, in my opinion. Valerie wasn't good enough. He is not good enough to be playing as a Premier League player. But the problem is a catch-22 again, because I don't agree that he's good enough to be a Premier League player. But then why ship him out if we already know that we're short at left back or right back? It's really hard. Super, super hard decision. But I agree with you, Matt, that he shouldn't have been sent out. Even if a player isn't good enough, it means that at least Bednarak doesn't have to play at right back.
Right.
If we can keep as many of our solid players in their own natural position, I think that would have been a lot more beneficial.
Yeah.
Bednarak at right back, it didn't work, and It's not fair on Bednarak to have to play right back.
Right.
Yes, Jan Valerie isn't good enough to be playing at this league, at this level, but it means that the players that aren't good enough to be playing at this level can play in their natural position.
Yeah, and I think that makes us more solid overall. Unfortunately, I think Ryan Bertrand might be the second best right back we have. And that means that somebody like Salisu has to play on the left, which he didn't do terrible, but he's not a natural left back, and it shows. Let's see. We have a couple.
There's the problem, Matt. It's the problem of a paper-thin squad is that you're asking these players to play out of position because we don't have the means to kind of compete at this level financially. It all comes down to that. If we don't have the money to compete in the Premier League, we're going to keep flip-flopping like we've had done and flirting with relegation for the last few years. This summer is a huge summer for us.
Mm-hmm.
Huge summer for us.
Yeah,
and even if we get new owners in, which I don't think we will, it's not going to be. It's going to have to take too long. That it will then be next summer after that. We wouldn't then see the immediate investment because, like you said, these kind of changing ownerships, they take long. They take a long time to go through. And I just can't see us investing this summer. And if we do invest, we're going to have to sell. And then when you sell your best players, you get worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, where do we go from here? It's hard. I'd like to be a lot more optimistic. But if you don't have the money to compete in the Premier League, I think Saints fans have to all be a bit more realistic and think, okay, maybe mid-table is good enough for a team like us.
Yeah.
And do you know what, Matt? I'll be completely honest with you, okay?
Yeah.
If we make it through to the final of the FA Cup, I mean, God forbid we actually win the FA Cup and we finish maybe just above relegation, I would be more than happy.
Yeah.
Like, I would be over the moon. So I think that it's been great to have a cup run this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. But that's just realistic, isn't it? If we can finish maybe just kind of above the relegation zone, maybe sort of top half of the bottom half, maybe that is good enough for Saints at the moment. That's kind of where we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we win the FA Cup, I think some fans will look back on the season and only remember kind of the matches we played good football, when everybody was fit, and we will gloss over some of the cracks that are there. But as you said, when it comes to the summer and investment, there's not really any indication. There's no history there that leads me to believe we're going to actually do it. And that's part of the problem, is Ralph has to look at that too. And if you're talking about selling players, like who's in our squad that's going to garner us, some tidy profit that's going to allow us to reinvest that and bring somebody else in, and how are we possibly going to get a better player? If Ings goes, how are we going to get a better player in? Who else is going to go? Yes, I want to go to Southampton. And that is going to be better than Danny Ings, and I can't really. I don't see it. And that's not even the way that the club goes about its transfer business. It's going to go get somebody that's unproven, that's going to develop. And the problem is as soon as you miss on that once or twice, you fall behind. And we saw that. We've seen that with Wesley Hoot. We've seen that with Guido Carrillo. We've seen that with other players. Even I go back to Jordy Classy, who didn't really work out. And players don't work out sometimes, but when your whole system relies on you getting money for those players eventually, and then we don't, then we wind up in the situation where we're in when and we're relying on an investor or an owner to invest that has no interest in doing that, and that's where fans get upset. And I think that's fine to get upset. I also think it's fine for the owner to go like, nope, like I've made an investment, then that's it. His heart is not in this club like it is for you and I, and that's I guess that's the difference, and that's what some clubs, I think Brighton's owner is, he's sensible, but he's also a fan, and that makes a difference as we go through it. So we have a question here from Colt Baker. At the end of the game, not enough urgency, didn't get the ball forward enough, but it says, why do we never seem to play with any sense of urgency when we are down by a goal until we are into stoppage time? And there were flashes when the subs came on, but just not enough. And I just want to say it kind of felt like that's the story of the game, where we just didn't really play with any urgency, and that was part of what put us behind in the first place.
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier in the podcast, is that Southampton lack that gumption, they lack that energy. They play too many sideways balls. They try and play it a bit more cautiously. It's a bit more disciplined. And I think when you're chasing the game, when you're one behind, it doesn't look great to fans. They see so many sideways balls and think, God, just get it in the box, a bit more urgency. But I think that's what Ralph's way of playing. He's a bit more methodical. He'd rather keep the ball and kind of be, rather than being like expressive and flash, I think he would rather kind of work it around a little bit. But the problem is, I don't think we've got the players to put an amazing ball in the box or produce that little bit of magic. to break down defenses. Like I said earlier, I think the only bit of kind of energy I saw towards the second half was come 90 minutes, and I think there was a flashing kind of run into the box by Kyle Walker-Peters. But apart from that, yeah, there wasn't a lot to really be impressed by, and that only becomes a problem when you're trailing. So yeah, that was a real problem today.
So I apologize. The recorder died in the middle of that. I'm going to blame it on the time change. But so if you heard a difference in the audio, that's what it was. So thank God for the backup. But and I also, when the recorder shuts off, I don't hear what you're saying. So it'll be a surprise when I listen back and edit. So we'll see how it goes.
What about you, Matt? Were you disappointed in the lack of energy, the lack of desire kind of come towards the end when we're chasing our tails? Did you kind of agree with the question?
Yeah, and I do think though that it was not just then; it was the whole game. And I thought that just the lack of energy was part of the reason we were down in the first place. And it's part of the reason we just didn't show up really, and I think that's disappointing to me. I would like to see though, more energy when it's very clear that we need to get the ball forward and get the ball into the box, and we just don't do it, and it's it's disappointing to me all the way around, I think.
Do you know what? Maybe one thing that we probably haven't touched on is that maybe Brighton just actually outplayed us. Maybe Brighton was just great. I think their game management towards the end was absolutely brilliant. I think if the shoe was on the other foot and we were 2-1 up against Brighton, we would have probably crumbled. I thought they were absolutely excellent in playing and holding on to a lead, and they defended really well. 5 men behind the ball. Really nice spacing between each defender, and they made it hard for us to score. So maybe it's a case of, yes, we probably didn't do great, but credit to Brighton who were solid. Yeah.
And Graham Potter's substitutions were also, they were sensible. They had to make a substitution due to injury at halftime. They tweaked their formation a little bit. Then towards the end of the game, I also hate to say this, but Welbeck and Lallana both played well. I thought they did okay today for Brighton. But when they brought Welbeck off, I think they brought another defender on, and they just kind of, solidified. And I thought once they were dropping so deep, I thought maybe we're going to have a chance, but we kind of don't have that creativity. We play better when teams come and press us, so we can run in behind them and we can run at them. And, when we had those chances, like that was part of my disappointment with Tella and Adams overall and then Minamino as well. We didn't do it enough today. So just overall a failing, but also Brighton came and had a game plan, and they played well. So we do have to give them some credit, I think. I have a question here. This is from Kevin McGee, and he asked this last week. I didn't answer it last week, and then he said, "My question from above still stands, especially on the early starts." So for you, as somebody who lives in the UK, what's your feeling around a noon kickoff? Do you enjoy those, or do you think it should only be for, I think the FA Cup final kicks off at some point in the early afternoon, but what's your feeling around something other than a 3 p.m. kickoff?
I enjoy it when we win, because then it tees up the rest of the day. I'm in a great mood. I can enjoy the rest of the day, but like today, we've lost. And then it just ruins the rest of the day. I don't know about you, but it will then just ruin the rest of my day because we've played bad, we haven't won, and it then just puts me in a bad mood for the rest of the day. So yes, to answer the question, I quite enjoy an early kickoff if we win, but if we lose, no, I hate it.
Yeah. So Kevin's question for me, I think I've adjusted over the last couple of years to games being played in the morning. Generally, most games kick off at 7 a.m., and I don't mind that. My Saturdays before the pandemic, which is over a year ago now, used to be watch Saints play at 7. I played at 9. I got home around 11:30 or 12, and I had the whole rest of the weekend to kind of do things. Usually it involved some sort of a nap because I was exhausted or whatever. But days like today where we play at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., those are rough, but you plan for it by going to bed early the night before and all that stuff. But in terms of like watching sports at night, I don't tend to watch TV in the evening at all. The only time I watch TV really is when we're watching, or when I'm watching Saints, and that's generally in the morning. the later we get into the day, the more I feel like I should be doing other things. Like I should be doing, like, we watched Lord of the Rings on Friday night and things like that. So it's like, I feel like I should be doing those things. And if Saints were on at that same time, I would be conflicted, and I never get to watch with the same level of attention if everybody is awake. So I don't know. I actually have come to like the early mornings. That's the time when my house is the quietest. It's the time when I'm, generally alone, as I have a teenage son and a daughter who's approaching that time in her life. So they want to sleep in and they don't really want to be around that early. So it works out for me. I can't speak for all American fans. I definitely can't speak for anybody in Hawaii where the normal kickoff time is 4 a.m. That sounds terrible to me. But and I also don't want to hear any complaints from anybody on the East Coast whose earliest kickoff is like today. They would have kicked off at 8 a.m. But that's like, that's not that bad, guys. You'll be all right.
I've got a question for you, Matt.
Yeah.
With early kickoffs, when Saints score, does it make it harder because you can't go crazy and celebrate because your kids are asleep?
Usually what keeps me from really clapping my hands, I've learned I have to hold coffee or something in my hands, because otherwise my reaction to almost everything is at least one hand clap, whether it's out of frustration or whether it's out of elation. And so as long as I hold something usually warm in my hands, it will prevent me from doing that. But if we score a last minute winner, or, somebody like the Che Adams strike from a couple of weeks ago, I will let loose usually. And then the dogs come running down, and then I got to take them out to go to the bathroom and all that stuff. But that's okay. But only if I'm holding something. If I'm not holding anything, then I don't really hold myself back at all.
Yeah, I have to admit, the other day when Chase scored that lovely volley, I think I did about 2 laps of my house with my shirt off over my head.
Yeah.
It was quite the strike. And it was, do you know what? I completely forgot about VAR, and I completely celebrated straight off. And I've missed that because for so long now when Saints score, I'm kind of like, oh, do I celebrate? Don't I celebrate? But I think when Chase scored the other day, I went mental and I just celebrated anyway. And thankfully, VAR didn't scrap it off.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we can just cross our fingers that doesn't happen, because if you have to wait for VAR, then the moment's gone, right? I can't justify. Same thing if I watch a match on replay. Sometimes if matches are played in the middle of the week, I'm at school or at work or whatever, and I can't watch it. And then you watch it on replay, and it's like, well, can I yell now? Because like this goal actually happened 8 hours ago, and I don't know. So I can still smile about it, still think it was a great goal, but I can't really. I can't yell and scream and do all that other stuff. So that's just the way it goes. But I don't know. I think, I guess we should just touch one last time. We talked about the defending on Bertrand for the goal. We didn't really talk about the Che Adams goal. I think it was well taken. Brighton would have been a little bit probably disappointed that they didn't get their lines clear, but we just didn't create enough today. And I think that's, we didn't deserve to win, and that sucks to say, but I think that's the truth. And I just hope that, going forward, we do a little bit better. And obviously the game against Bournemouth next weekend is a big game for the fact that we, could continue to progress in the FA Cup. We got probably the best draw we can get. Unfortunately, Shane Long won't be playing. But, that will be, we got to go to Bournemouth and do the business. And hopefully we do.
If we play the way that we played today, do you think we progress into the semi-finals?
No, I think we'd struggle to beat anybody if we played the way we played today. We have to have a little bit more passion. We have to have a little bit more excitement, a little bit more purpose, I think is probably what it is. And I don't think Ralph would have been happy with today's performance. Because if you look at what he, we did have a question, we didn't really talk about it, but it was kind of said, what is the point of Ralph? And I think when you look at a team and say that's a Ralph Hasenhüttl team, there is energy, there is pressing, and it's every single position, and it's the players are talking to each other and yelling to each other and kind of swarming the ball and creating chances, and when we do that, we can play with anybody. And when we don't do that, when we don't have the individual creative, brilliance to just say, give the ball to, Kevin De Bruyne, or, you name a player in Liverpool's front line and say, we don't have that to just give them the ball and say, go create, and we'll worry about, we'll just stand here and get out of your way. We need the whole team to do that. And I think that's what Ralph has brought to the team for a lot of it. But when we don't have the energy, then the whole thing just kind of falls apart. And at some point it's got to be on Ralph to get the guys to do that. But once you're out there, it's the 11 players that are out there that have to make those decisions, and commit to that. And if you're not going to do it, then we're going to look like we do today.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. You hit the nail on the head. For Southampton to win, every single player has to be playing their heart out. Everyone has to be playing for the team and at the tip top of their game for us to win. And for recent last 10 games, that hasn't happened. And hence why we've lost so many games. I mean, 16 games, 10 losses, 2 wins, 4 draws. Until the team starts to play together and everyone starts to get to the top of their game, we're not gonna buck this trend. We need to start playing together, and we need to do it quick.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't like to do predictions, so I won't make you say it unless you want to say it. Feel free to give us a prediction if you want, but I won't ask you for it. But anyway, I've enjoyed talking to you. And if people don't already follow you, they can do that on Twitter at Saints FC Views. It's Saints News and Views is the account. I've been running it for a long time. Do you remember when you started it?
Yeah, I think it was, I can't remember the exact date, but it was when I was first going to university to study journalism. And I thought I needed something that shows a little bit of kind of a bit of journalistic background when I was applying to all these universities. So I set up a Twitter page about Southampton because I love football. I love Southampton. I followed them all my life. And it's just really grown from there. And I love it. I love people coming in and interacting and kind of giving their thoughts after the game. And I hope people enjoy it. I hope it gives kind of Saints fans a platform to kind of to communicate and interact with each other. And yes, it's not always positive. If the game's been bad and there are kind of bad things going on at the club, I'm not afraid to voice my opinions on a few of those things. But when it is going great and the Saints are winning like earlier this season, it's a brilliant place to be. And I love running this account. But to be fair, win or lose, I love running the account. I love interacting with the followers. So yeah, if you haven't already, come and kind of drop us a follow and get in touch.
Yeah. Last question just came in from Keith Spake 31 seconds ago. So we'll do this and then we'll wrap it up. But it says, why are Saints a first half team only? Are they being worked too hard? And this is something that I've thought about. Ralph pushes the players, to a degree. He demands a lot of them. Do you think that plays into players being injured and us running out of steam? Because it seems to be happening a lot.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. Really, really good question. We start the game off really well. Every single game we start off brilliantly normally. We press, we're aggressive, we want it, there's passion, there's desire. And maybe it's just a case of we can't keep up that mentality and that level of physicality for the whole 90 minutes. And that's why we've shipped goals late. That's why we've maybe dropped 18 points from winning positions, which is a league high. So is that a fitness issue? Is that an issue where Ralph needs to start to think, right, okay, do I change my style of play? But yeah, there's no doubt in knowing that we do start games better than we finish them. Yeah. But today we just started the game awfully and finished the game awfully.
It finished the game even worse. Yeah. But yeah, it's bound to happen at some point, and hopefully this doesn't become the norm, and we can turn it around. But it's probably easier to get yourself up to play Manchester City than it is to play Brighton, even though you would hope that professionals wouldn't have to worry about that. But I think that's fair. I'm sure there are some days I have classes when I go to class, and it's just like I don't want to teach this class. This lesson, it is just not one that I really am into or behind or whatever. But I have to do it. And I'm sure you have stories where you're like, this is not the story I want to be shooting. And it's part of the job. So I hope that my kids don't look at me on Monday and say, hey, like you're treating us like Saints treated Brighton. And then otherwise I'll cry. But anyway, Jack, I just want to say thanks again. I appreciate you putting up with the batteries dying, the the dogs having to be let out and everything else. And I just want to say thanks, and thanks for running the account. And hopefully we'll do this again and we'll have a win to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And hopefully next time we talk, it'll be off a kind of a better performance, 3 points. And hopefully next time we speak, we would have won the FA Cup. So I'm sure that'll happen.
Yeah, if that happens, man, I don't know. I don't even know.
No holding coffee in the FA Cup final, okay?
Yeah,
just let it go.
No holding. Yeah, just all over the room. The room's already a disaster. You get to see it. Nobody else gets to see it, but it'll be a mess anyway. So thanks a lot, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me on.
And that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. Special thanks goes out this week to Jack. You can find him on Twitter at SaintsFCViews. The account is Saints News and Views, so be sure to interact with it. Lots of people do enjoy sending in their comments, responding to posts, and Jack is not afraid to engage in a polite discourse with you, whether you agree or disagree with what he has to say. Just like to take a quick second to apologize for some of the audio issues. Today I'm going to blame it on the time change, the equivalent of a 4 a.m. kickoff. The batteries died. Skype was being rude. We'll just say that. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too big of a distraction. This show would not be possible without you, so thank you for listening. And also to the partners of the show, the Southampton page on Twitter. Follow them at Southampton page. They will help keep you up to date with everything going on around the football club. And the Saints Archive is where you can go to learn more about the history and culture of the Southampton Football Club. Be sure to follow them on Instagram, Twitter, and join the Facebook group so you can get involved in the discussion. The show's logo is done by Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. And all music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. We will, of course, be back next week after the Bournemouth match. There will be a new written piece up on Friday on the website. And until then, we're in it together. March on.